מה טובו, מה טובו, מה טובו אוהליך יעקב.
משכנותיך ישראל,
משכנותיך ישראל, ואני ברוכסתך, אבוא ביתך, אשתחווה, אשתחווה, אליך קודשך, ביראתך, אליך קודשך, ביראתך, יראתך. אדוני אהבתי מיד ביתך, ומקום משכן כבודך, ואני אשתחווה ואכרע אברך לפני אדוני עושים. ואני תפילתי לך אדוני, את רצון, את רצון אלוהים, ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך, באמת אישך.
Good morning and welcome to Beit David and to the beauty and glory of the beginning of our Rosh Hashanah services. I hope that you had a wonderful opportunity to share with your families last night, and I am delighted to bring us through the day together. We've got service in the morning, we'll have a tiny break, then we'll have a Torah reading, and then we will have an opportunity to tashlich together in a rather unusual way, and some study in the afternoon. So welcome. May this day bring for you a beautiful fresh page so that you may write upon it a glorious and wonderful, happy and healthy new year. We have some welcome from Mancom.
Shana Tova on behalf of Beit David here in Santon, Beit Menorah in Pretoria, and Beit David in Durban. Welcome this morning to our morning service. How fortunate that we are to have the technology that enables us to be virtually together. We hope that you will attend all services and events that are hosted by Beit David, and that these high holy days will be meaningful for you. Please feel free to share this link with friends and family, but also please remind people who are not congregants of Beit David to please, if they can, make a donation to Beit David. Please enjoy the service, and we welcome your comments in the chat. Shana Tova.
We turn now to page 120 in your Machzor. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokma u'bara'avo nikavim nikavim, halulim halulim. Galui v'yadua lifnei chisei chodecha, she'im yifatech echad mehem o yisatem echad mehem, אי אפשר לקיים ולעמוד לפניך Baruch Atah Adonai Rofech Basar Umafli La'asot. Blessing for the soul is on page 122.
Eloi, Eloi, Neshama. Shenatata bi tehorai.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama. Shenatata bi tehorai.
Ata mirata, ata yitzarta, ata nifachta bi. Le'ata meshamra bekirbi.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama. Shenatata bi tehorai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech vivina, lahavchin bein yom uvein lala. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who has given the man the ability to distinguish day from night.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Praise to you, our God, Adonai, sovereign of the universe, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who frees the captive.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zikuf kafufim. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who lifts up the fallen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam haka haaretz al hamayim. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who strengthens the earth over the waters.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamachim letzadei gaveh. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who strengthens our steps.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arurim. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who clothes the naked.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten laya'ef koach. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who gives strength to the weary.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'ena utnuma me'avapa. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzelem Elohim. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who made me in the image of God.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
haolam Shiasani Yisrael. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has made me a Jew.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Oseh Yisrael b'gvura. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who gives Israel strength.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hotei Yisrael b'tifara. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who crowns Israel with splendor.
Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, 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 Baruch Shemo, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Hu, 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 Baruch Shemo.
We turn now to the Psalm of the moment. We actually started saying the Psalm at the beginning of the month of Elul, and it has this incredibly beautiful image of ourselves planted in the house of the divine, growing like palm trees, always producing fruit, drawing up the water in joy from the living well and giving forth our beautiful fragrance. Achad sha'alti.
Ay, 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 oh. Ay, 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 da, 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 ay, oh. Achad sha'alti beit Adonai, otav akesh. Achad sha'alti beit Adonai, otav akesh. Ay, 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 shivti beit Adonai, kol yemei chayai, לחזות בנועם, בנועם hallelu, 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 hallelujah, hallelu, el berkocho, hallelu, biki auzo, hallelu, bikorota, hallelu, kirov gudlo, hallelu, 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 hallelujah, hallelu, 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 hallelujah, hallelu, beteka shofar, hallelu, belechino, hallelu, betovu machon, hallelu, bemini veugav, hallelu, 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 hallelujah, hallelu, 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 hallelujah, hallelu, betitzlei shama, hallelu, betitzlei trua, kol shama te aliyah, hallelu, hallelujah, hallelu, 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 hallelujah, hallelu, 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 hallelujah.
Page 138. Betatsumo tuzecha Agadol Bichvot Shimecha Hagibor LaNetzav Vehanora benorotecha HaMelech Yosef Akiseha Venisa Shochen ad marom v'kadosh shemo v'chatuv ranenu tzadikim b'Adonai la'yisharim navatehila V'fi yisharim titroman u'lidrei tzadikim titbarach Uveshon chasidim titkadash, uvakerev kedoshim titkala. Uvmachalot revavot amcha bet Yisrael. In the mouths of the righteous you are raised up. Your people by the thousands sing to glorify your name. In all generations, we give voice to your sovereignty. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign of praise, source of the impulse to give thanks. Think about that. That acknowledgement of generosity comes from the divine. And that acknowledgement is what motivates us to give back. Source of the impulse to give thanks, crown of wonders, who desires a world filled with song and a universe of light. Let us rise if you are comfortable and traditionally accustomed to doing so as we turn to page 141 for the Kaddish.
Yikata ve'yikatash shemei Rabba, Amen. Ve'alma divrach yirutei, ve'yamich malchutei. Chon u'yom echon, yedechon beit Yisrael. Agala u'mizman kariv, ve'imeru Amen. בשם רבה מבורך, לעולם עולם מעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם, ויתנשא ויתהדר, ויתעלה יתעלה, שמד קודשה בריחו, לעילם ולעילם מכל ברכתה ושירתה, חטא ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא, ויאמרו אמן.
Page 142. Please turn your heart towards Jerusalem, to the north, towards the temple, and towards the heart, center of the temple, where even on this day, people sit with their hands upon the stones of the wall and pray with all the depths of their heart. Baruch et Adonai Amvorach. Baruch Adonai Amvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol olam va'otzar chayim orot me'ofel amar vayehi. The blessing for light is the blessing for the beginning of creation. This new thought, this new shift from the eternity of darkness that brings the glory of God's light into the world. We turn to page 144. And I'm going to invite Tony 143, Tony to read to us about that first light.
Illuminate the welders in shipyards with the brilliance of their torches. Let the crane operator lift up his arm for joy. Let elevators creak and speak, ascending and descending in awe. Let the mercy of the flower's direction beckon in the eye. Let the straight flower bespeak its purpose in straightness, to seek the light. Let the crooked flower bespeak its purpose in crookedness, to seek the light. Let the crookedness and straightness bespeak the light.
Or chadash al Tzion tahir, v'nizkeh kulanu mehera leoro. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hameorot. The blessing for love is found on page 146. Avara ba'avtanu Adonai Eloheinu chemna gdola v'tiracham al ta'aleinu ba'avur avotenu v'imotenu shebarchu b'cha v'telamdem chukei chayim ken techanenu tlamdenu avinu havarachman amrachem rachem aleinu v'ten b'libenu lavinu laskir lishmoa lilmod u'lelamed lishmoa v'lasod u'kayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha b'ahava. And now we, in the middle of the page, we burst into the song to ask that the light comes to our eyes and that we be illuminated in all of God's glory.
והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך. ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש נבוש, ולא ניכלם ניכלם, ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד. ולא נבוש נבוש, ולא ניכלם ניכלם, ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך.
כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. May you cause us to rejoice and be happy in your great salvation.
והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי
Baruch atah Adonai, Abochem Amo Yisrael, Be'ahava. We move ourselves to the Shema, the moment where we listen. We listen to the gloriousness of the Creator, Eloheinu, and to the beautiful depths of the former, Adonai. And we place these two together, Adonai Eloheinu, because we know that no matter how many names we can come up with for the divine, and there are an infinite number, for the divine is infinitely magnificent, there's only one essence, and we are connected to that essence in our love. So please prepare yourselves, maybe by bringing your tzitzit together, by directing your heart once again towards Jerusalem, by placing your arm around a loved one sitting near you, for the Shema on page 150.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך, בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. You shall love Adonai your God with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Set these words, which I command you this day, upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ, מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Be mindful of all my mitzvot, and do them. Thus you will become holy to your God. I, Adonai, am your God, who brought you out of Egypt to be your God. I, Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet.
And with that bringing out of Egypt, we once again remember the new creation. And it really is there, you know. We were in the darkness and we were brought to light. The waters were split at the sea and we went through on the dry land. And then we sang like the birds as the fish leaped below us in a recreation of all of the world. And this is the song we sang. It's found on page 164.
Mi kamocha b'nim Adonai, mi kamocha neda b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef elem, nora tehilot osef elem.
To Israel, come Bezrat Israel, Ovedechinu mecha Yehuda ve'Israel, Goleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael, Gal
And now we come to that central part of our prayer, to the opportunity to really open our hearts. Now that we've acknowledged the love and the creation and the recreation through relationship, we enter into this time of hope and this time of connection. We begin on page 166.
Adonai Satai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tov, V'koneh hakol, V'zocher chasei avot ve'imahot, U'mevii gula livnei bneihem, L'man shemo be'ahava.
Zocheinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chodveinu b'sefer ha'chaim, Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah.
Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, v'chayei hakol ata, Rav lehoshia. Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, Mechayim metim berachamim rabim. Samek noflim v'rofech olim, U'matir hasurim, U'mekayem emunato lishenei afal. Michamocha bal gevurot, u'midam melech menit u'mechaye, כמוך אל הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להריות הכל ברוך. אתה אדוני בחיי הכל. To invite Carla to read for us on page 173.
In our everyday lives, we live with an illusion of control. We guard our health by eating well, exercising, and getting regular checkups. We get ahead professionally by working hard and building effective relationships. At the liturgical moment of Untana Tokev, we are forced to admit how profoundly our lives can be altered by random occurrences over which we have no control. A brain hemorrhage or heart attack can come out of nowhere. A drunk driver can cripple or kill. A parent can have to bury a child. An organization's sudden economic reversals can unexpectedly result in layoffs or firings. A healthy pregnancy can end with a stillbirth. A competent person can be unable to find work. A trusted marriage can collapse. In my heart of hearts, I know that I have as little control as any other sheep in the flock. At the moment of Utana Tokev, I know for a certainty that my life hangs in the balance. When these high holy days end, I may be lulled back into my false sense of security, the cocoon of my routine. But today, I feel my exposure, sense the danger inherent in life, re-encounter my mortality. My end is dust. I cannot control the unexpected blows that will affect my family, my job, my health, but I can control how I live with them. Teshuvah, cultivating a spiritual life and returning to Torah. Tefillah, cultivating gratitude and connecting with transcendent values. And tzedakah, cultivating generosity and pursuing justice, will mitigate the bad in the decree.
ונתן תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום, ובו תינשא מלכותך, וייכון בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו באמת. אמת, אמת, כי אתה הוא דיין, דיין ומוכיח, ויודע בעת, ויודע בעת, וחותם וחותם וסופר ומונה, וסופר ומונה, וסופר ומונה, וסופר ומונה, ותזכור כל הנשכחות, ותפתח את ספר הזיכרונות. רותם יד כל אדם בו.
ובשופר גדול יתקע וכל דממה דקה
בראש השנה יקטבון, וביום צום כיפור יחתנו. כמה יברון וכמה מטורף, מי ישלף ומי יתעשר, מי עני ומי עשיר, מי יושפל ומי ירום. ותשובה ותפילה וצדקה מעבירים את רוע הגזירה, מעבירים את רוע הגזירה.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וכזה אל זה, ואמר.
קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ,
אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו.
אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה.
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה. Page 186. ובכן תן ברכתך אדוני אלוהינו על כל מעשיך, ואימתך על כל מה שבראת.
And so, in your holiness, give all creations the gift of awe. Turn our fear into reverence. Let us be witnesses of wonder, perceiving all nature as a prayer come alive. We bow to the sovereignty of your strength, the primacy of your power. We yearn for the connection with all that lives, doing your will with wholeness of heart. Awe-inspiring is your creation, awe-encompassing your transcendent name.
ובכן תן כבוד אדוני לעמך, תהילה ליראתך, ותקווה טובה לדורשך, ופתחון פה למייחלים לך, שמך לארצך, וששון לעירך.
And so, in your holiness, give your people the gift of honor. Bless with praise those who praise you. Bless with hope those who seek you. Give your believers a basis for faith, true happiness for the land of Israel, true joy in Jerusalem. May the sparks of David, your servant, soon grow bright enough for us to see a beam of light in the darkness. a promise of perfection.
ובכן צדיקים יראו וישמחו, וישרים יעלוזו, וחסידים ברינה יגיבו, ועולתה תקפץ פיהם.
And so, in your holiness, give the righteous the gift of a vision bright with joy, a world where evil has no voice, and the rule of malevolence fades like wisps of smoke. Good people everywhere will celebrate, the stunning sight of arrogance gone from the earth.
קדוש אתה ונורא שמך, ואין אלוה מבלעדיך, ככתוב, ויקבע אדוני צבאות במשפט, והאל הקדוש נקדש בצדקה. אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש.
אתה ברכתנו מכל העמים, אהבת אותנו ורצית בנו,
ורוממתנו מכל הלשונות, וקידשתנו במצוותיך, וקרבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך, לעבודתך, ושמך הגדול והקדוש עלינו קראת.
ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבת יום הזיכרון הזה, יום תרועה מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, יעלה ויבוא ויגיע, ויראה וירצה וישמע, ויפקד ויזכר זיכרוננו ופיקוננו, וזיכרון אבותינו ואמותינו, וזיכרון ירושלים עיר קודשך, וזיכרון כל עמך בית ישראל לפניך, לפלטה לטובה, לכן ולחסד ורחמים, לחיים ולשלום, ביום הזיכרון הזה. זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בו לטובה.
אמן.
ופוקדנו בו לברכה.
אמן.
והושיענו בו לחיים טובים. So we come to the special editions for Rosh Hashanah, the three, I'm going to say attributes of our service, that of Malchuyot, remembering the divine, that of Zichronot, calling out
our memory, and that of shofarot, the blowing of the divine note. And you will notice that these three are intimately tied together, that we acknowledge the divine and we remember God's presence. And in remembering, we hear the visible sound of the shofar that brings us back to the acknowledgement of the divine. And were we in together, which God willing we will be soon, I would invite you to come with me on a journey, on the journey between the world as we know it and the world of creation, because we're at this nexus right now between the year that has passed and the year that is to come. And in this moment, when we place ourselves between layers of creation, we open up new opportunities for ourselves and for our lives. And so were we together, I would invite you, as we got to the Grand Aleinu, which would be so beautifully sung by our choir, to join me in placing yourselves upon the earth. The only other time we do this, of course, is Yom Kippur, and is at the end of our lives. We are placed on the earth. We return to that from which we were formed. But now we do it alive. We do it intentionally. We do it so that we can say, from this earth, from this ordinary thing, which of course is not the slightest bit ordinary, we can rise to praise. And isn't that really what life is about? Is discovering those moments of truth when we can find praise in our most abject, in our most mundane, as well as in our most joyous. And so we return to the ground and place ourselves between the world of our visible ability and the world of our intangible ability. And we reside there. We would reside there for a moment together in silence, holding those two things as both real. The world of the flesh, the world of the spirit, the God of justice, the God of love. And when we combine these two things, just as we say the Shema, it is our way of acknowledging the true divine nature that is both our inheritance and our protection. So please join us in Malchuyot. We begin with a reading on page 200.
Malchuyot, accepting your sovereignty. We are stiff-necked and stubborn. Teach us to bend before you. Convinced we're right, entrenched in our own perspective, we resist your call to repent. Convinced we're self-sufficient, entrenched in the illusion of control, we resist your call to humility. Convinced we can have it all, entrenched in the dream of mastering the world, we resist your call to wake up. Today you summon us out of our arrogance, out of rigidity, fantasy, shallowness, self-deception. Teach us to bend our knees, to bow our heads before the mystery, to realize our frailty and our finitude. Teach us to make you Melech, sovereign in our life, to align ourselves with your goodness and truth. We would not bow before Pharaoh. We would not bow before Persian lord. We would not submit to any power on earth or give ourselves to any material thing. But we, the Jewish people, stiff-necked, stubborn to the end, today we bow before you.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'kol l'atet gedula le'otzer bereshit shelo עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה.
שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים
לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ועושה ארץ ומושב יקרות בשמיים ממעל ושכינת וזוהר ועובד מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. אמת אמת מלכנו, אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום וישבתה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל מתחת אין עוד, אין עוד.
We come now to this moment of hearing the shofar. And this is really our first listening. We've been blowing throughout the month of Elul, but this is really that first moment. And so I invite you to join me in the blessing with reverence for what it is that we are about to do, to open our ears and our minds and our hearts and our hands to experience this sound that is to be unsettling and exciting and bring us to the sweetness that is our heritage this year. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar.
Malchiot, accepting your sovereignty. We are stiff-necked and stubborn.
Tikiya Svarim Trua Tikiya Tekiah, Shvarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Truah, Tekiah, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Hayom harat olam, Hayom yamid b'mishpat, Kol yetzurei olamim. Im kavanim rachameinu kerachem av labanim, ve'im gavanim elneinu lechat eluyot ad shechoneinu ve'totzi kor mishpateinu hayom kadosh.
The second part of our special service is Zichronot, the opportunity to remember. And in this holy time, we remember the beauties of creation. You know what it's like to conceive of a project, and maybe you draw it out, or you tell a friend about it, or you make a rough draft on paper. I know that's old-fashioned, or on the computer. And as you see the project through, things shift and change. And perhaps what you had imagined in your mind was not what you ended up with, but perhaps what you ended up with was even better than what you thought at the beginning. And this is really what Zichronot is about for us, that the world was created with a certain kind of perfection, and yet we are also here to remember that there is more perfection to be uncovered, and that our ancestors have held keys to that change, to that shift. And we now hold the keys for our great-great-grandchildren, as they too will remember the world as we knew it and move on to creating their own memories. The shofar sounding for Zichronot is on page 268. We have a reading first, 264. David and Liliana, please.
Zichronot, the divine awakens within us. The divine awakens within us a sudden awareness of your presence. Seeing signs of your compassion, we say, God remembered. God remembered Noah and all the beasts that were with him in the ark, and God caused a wind to blow across the earth, and the waters subsided.
When cruelty and hate diminish, we say God remembered. The Israelites were groaning under the bondage and cried out. God heard their moaning, and God remembered the covenant with Abram and Isaac and Jacob.
Surprised by joy, we say God remembered. Then God remembered Rachel, and God gave heed to her and opened her womb.
Overcoming anger, finding strength to forgive, we say God remembered. God remembered the covenant, and with great love had a change of heart.
The divine awakens within us a sudden awareness of your presence.
When we feel our kinship with all creatures of earth, we say, God, remember. I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures.
Tikiya Svarim Trua Tikiya Tikiya Svarim Tikiya Tikiya Trua Tikiya
V'taher libenu, v'taher libenu, v'taher libenu li'avtecha be'emet. V'taher libenu, v'taher libenu, v'taher libenu li'avtecha be'emet. Da 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 da, hoi! Da 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 da, da 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 da. V'taher libenu, v'taher libenu, v'taher libenu li'avtecha be'emet. V'taher libenu, v'taher libenu, v'taher libenu li'avtecha be'emet.
We ask that God purify our hearts to do the service in truth. And I have this image this year of, dipping our hearts in Torah, dipping a strawberry in chocolate. Yes, you have something wonderful and you put it in something wonderful, and together they create something that transcends the two things separately. And this is really where we come with our shofar listening, that we have opened up the kingship, the possibility that we are created in the image of the most benevolent and ultimate divine. That's our strawberry. And the Zichronot, we have the history of people from Adam and Eve all the way through to 2021. And that sovereignty has been dipped in our lives. And together we form the heart of creation. The breath that comes into us, leaves us, and nourishes the planet. And in that breath, now modified through our shofar, we reach back up to the divine and remember our sovereignty and our glory as well in the sounding of the shofar. And so Mark and Meir, if you would please read for us a bit about the shofarot.
Shofar, shofarot, the voice of hope. According to Rabbah, the Holy One said, on Rosh Hashanah, recite before me words of Malchuyot, sovereignty, Zichronot, remembrance, and Shofarot. Sovereignty, so that you may acknowledge me as ruler over you. Remembrance, so that remembrances of you may rise up favorably before me. And how shall all of this be accomplished? Through the sound of the shofar. Prayers for the third and final sounding of the shofar evoke the revelation at Mar Sinai when the people experience God amidst thunder and lightning and a dense cloud upon the mountain and very loud blast of the horn. Kol shofar chazak me'od. The shofar's blast, a sound conveying warning, triumph and celebration, here marks a moment of intense spiritual elevation when a band of newly liberated slaves entered a sacred covenant with the divine.
The shofar, according to Midrash, signifies freedom. In ancient Israel, it was sounded to announce the coming of the Jubilee in the 50th year, a time of liberation for servants and restoration of land for the poor. In the Jewish imagination, the shofar blast remains a symbol of the here and now redemption for which Jews have prayed since we first stood at the shore of the Sea of Reeds. In our own time as well, we pray for freedom from violence, persecution, and injustice. In the first and second shofar preludes, we have experienced the ram's horn through the lenses of sovereignty, malchuyot, and remembrance, zichronot. We call this final set of shofar prayers and reflections the voice of hope, for the climatic Tekiyah Gedolah is a crescendo of our most profound hopes as a people, and of our deepest personal hopes on the threshold of a new year. When the 9 individual notes of Teruah unite and flow into one great expansive final Tekiyah, we feel ourselves part of a resonant call that transcends the limits of time. Tradition imbues the final sounding of the shofar with overtones of messianic hope, a yearning for the day when, according to the prophet Zechariah, Adonai will be one and God's name will be one.
Tikiyah Svarim Truah Tikiyah Tikiyah Svarim Tikiyah Tikiyah Truah Tikiyah Tikiyah Gedolah
shalom, tova uveracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, sim shalom, sim shalom. Marcheinu Avinu, kolanu kechad be'ar panecha, ki be'ar panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Torat chaim ve'ahavat chesed u'tzedakah u'beracha ve'rachamim ve'chaim ve'shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uveracha, ve'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol et ubechol shah b'lishonecha besefer chaim beracha v'shalom u'parnassah tova nisafrer v'nikatev lefanecha anachnu v'chol amcha beit Yisrael lechaim tovim shalom, shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, sim shalom, shalom, shalom. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch hu Baruch shemo, Oseh hashalom. Amen, amen, amen.
Shana Tova, so beautifully done to have this amalgamation of shofarot. I know that we are in the middle of the service, We're about to take just a 20-minute break before we come back for Avinu Malkeinu and the Torah service. I want to nonetheless, even though we're not at the end, take this opportunity to thank so much our whole tech team, but most especially Doron, who is so smoothly managing all of the putting together and then the bringing to us of our beautiful services, and also who helped the choir to learn a number of beautifully done new tunes, and who really has been my right-hand person in the transmission of me to you, even though it's via electrons. So we are now about to take a tiny break. I want to bless you with the opportunity to refresh yourselves, to find the holy within, to remember to take good care of it, and to listen to the sounds of beauty around you, so that when we return together, you come back. It's not even 20 minutes anymore. You come back refreshed and ready to listen to our stories and to open up your hearts to the divine. Shana Tova, we'll see you shortly. Welcome back. I hope that you've had a chance to have a little bit of tea and perhaps some refreshment. We are in the beginning of our Torah service. We have just heard Avinu Malkeinu, the opening of the heart, the opportunity to say, we haven't quite connected with your Torah in the way that we wish we had. We've just missed the mark in these ways. And we've asked that because of the merit of our ancestors, of those who died because of the Kiddush Hashem, of the holiness of the name, of all who have walked in God's path, we ask that we also be heard because we are on that path. And part of that path is wrestling with the complicated things that our Torah brings us. And today we read one of these stories that always gives us pause, the story of Hagar and of the first son of Abraham, whose fate is to become our brother and perhaps also our adversary, giving us the job of reaching out to our sister and becoming her friend. So this is where we are today in our Torah reading, the immortal story of Abraham as, over the course of the next 2 days, he confronts the possibility of losing all of his children and then finds them all around him in blessing afterwards. So we begin our Torah service on page 227.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai.
Ein k'maasecha.
Malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'memsholtecha bechol dor v'dor.
Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, Adonai Yimloch, Le'olam va'ed.
Adonai oz le'moiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
Harachamim, Eitiva, B'tzorecha et Zion, Tibenei chomot, Yerushalayim.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And I know you're all repeating that at home. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonai Kadosh Shemo. Kalul Adonai iti uneromema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedura v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki cho b'shamayim u'ba'aretz ki cho b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Lecha Adonai hamamlacha V'amit na'aseh lechol erod. This is indeed a very small Torah. It's an interesting challenge to keep all of it in the window with me. Zoom has got a flat screen situation. This is the Torah that was given to my grandfather many years ago, and I am very blessed and fortunate to have it with us. And so she is here to celebrate along with the Torahs at Beit David. Getting ready for our reading. I would like to call up Jackie Meltz. Ya'amar Yaakov ben Meir Nachum L'Aliyah Rishona. Our Torah reading is on page 238.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach, Baruch Adonai hamavorach l'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai hamavorach l'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'Adonai pakad et Sarah, ka'asher amar, vayas Adonai l'Sarah, ka'asher diber. V'tahad v'teled Sarah la'Avraham bein lihiskunav l'moed asher diber oto Elohim vayikra Avraham et shem beno hanolad lo Asher yalda lo Sarah Yitzchak Vayimo Avraham et Yitzchak beno ben shmona yamim ka'asher tziva oto Elohim.
And Adonai remembered Sarah as promised. And that which had been spoken, Adonai fulfilled for Sarah. And Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time that God had told him. And Abraham called his son, the one born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, by the name Isaac. And Abraham circumcised Isaac his son at the age of 8 days, as God had commanded him.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chiyei olam notah b'tocheinu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ya'amod Doron ben David l'chanet l'aliyah shniya. We welcome Greg Flash, the chair of the South African Union of Progressive Jews. Progressive
Baruch
Judaism.
et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachamani mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. V'Avraham ben me'at shana. V'hivaled lo et Yitzchak beno. V'tomer Sarah tzrok asali Elohim ki hashomea yitzchak li. V'tomer mi milel Avraham heni kavanim Sarah ki eladati ve'en Liskunam. Vayigdal hayeled, vayigamar, vayahas Avraham ishteh gadol, bayom yigamel et Yitzchak, v'tares Sarah et ben Hagar hanitzvit, asher yalda la'Avraham.
And Abraham's age was 100 years when Isaac his son was born to him. And Sarah said, God has brought me laughter. All who hear will laugh on my account. And she said, who would have told Abraham, Sarah will nurse children? Yet I've given him a son in his old age. And the boy grew and he was weaned. And Abraham prepared a great feast on the day of Isaac's weaning. Now Sarah saw the Egyptian Hagar's son, the one she bore to Abraham, laughing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam neta b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Yeshikar, I'd like to call up our completely amazing treasure alone to the next aliyah. Ya'amod Alon ben Baruch la'aliyah shlishi.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavarach. Baruch Adonai hamavarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamavarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. V'tomer Avraham geresh hamazot ve'et bena ki lo yirash ben hamazot im beni im Yitzchak. Vayera davar me'od be'enei Avraham adot beno. Vayomer Elohim el Avraham ayera be'enecha al hana'ar ve'al amatecha kol asher tomar elecha tzara shama bekola ki beyitzchak yikare lecha zara v'gam et ben ha'amar legoy asimenu ki zaracha.
And she said to Abraham, expel the servant woman and her son, for the son of the servant woman will not share the inheritance with my son, not with Isaac. In Abraham's eyes, this seemed wrong. for it concerned his son. And God said to Abraham, "Do not see this as a wrong act against your boy and your servant woman. Whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her voice, for through Isaac your seed shall go forth. I will make the servant woman's son a nation as well, for he is your seed." Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeshua. We now call up the president of Beit Menorah in Pretoria, Wilfred Lautenberg. Ya'amod Zev ben Michael v'Miriam la'aliyah revi'it.
Baruch et Adonai HaMavorach. Baruch Adonai HaMavorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'am, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayaskem Avraham Baboker Vayikach lechem Vechemat mayim Vayiten el hagar Sham al shechma ve'et hayeled ve'yishalcheha v'telech v'teta b'midbar b'shava v'yechul hamayim min hachemet v'tishlach et hayeled tachat echad Hashisichim Vatele Vateshef Laha Mineged Harachek Kemit Havek Eshet Ki Amra Al Erech Bamot Hayeled Vateshef mineged Vetisa et kulaha Vatech.
Genesis 21 verses 14 to 16. So Abraham awoke early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water to give to Hagar, placed them on his shoulder along with the boy, and sent her off. And she walked and she wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And when the water skin was empty, she cast the boy under one of the bushes, and went and sat down at a distance, as far as the shot of a bow. For she said, "Let me not see the child die." And as she sat at a distance and raised her voice and cried,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam natanu b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yeshua, amen. We now call up for our final aliyah, Rajel Shobel. Ya'amod Ruvain ben Abraham v'Sarah l'aliyah chamisha.
Baruch et Adonai HaMavorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMavorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayishma Elohim et Kohana'al, Vayikra Malach Elohim el Hagar min hashamayim, Vayomer laha Malach Hagar, Al tiri ki shama Elohim et Kohana'al, Ba'asher hu sham, Kumi Tzei et hana'al, Be'ereziki et yadech,
et yadech bo, ki legoy gado asimenu. Vayivkach Elohim et eineha, vatere be'mayim, vatelech, vatimale et hachem et mahayim, vetesh et hana'am. Vayehi Elohim et hana'am, vayigdal. Vayeshev bamidbar vayehi rove keshat. Vayeshev bamidbar pa'an v'tikach lo ima isha me'eretz Mitzrayim.
And God heard the boy's voice, and the messenger of God called out to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the boy's voice where he is. Stand up, lift the boy, and hold strongly onto him with your hand, for I will make of him a great nation." And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and she filled the water skin and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy as he grew. He made his home in the wilderness and became a shooter of the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother acquired for him a wife from the land of Egypt. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Exalt HaTorah asher sam Moshe livnei bnei Israel. Ad pi Adonai beyad Moshe.
Misheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yevarech Et Yaakov ben Meir Nahum ve'et Doron ben David v'Chana ve'et Alon ben Baruch ve'et Zev ben Michael Miriam ve'et Reuven ben Avraham v'Sarah she'alu hayom lichvod hamakom lichvod haTorah לכבוד החג, שיש להם חיים טובים, חיים מתוקים, חיים ארוכים. May the Holy One who blessed our ancestors bless all those who have opened up the portions of Torah for us today. May they be given health and well-being, joy and happiness, a clean and fresh page in the book of life. May the acts of their hands succeed along with our fellow Jews everywhere. And let us say together, Amen. So you know that in this holy time, as our Torah is still in front of us on the ark, in my case, on the kitchen table. It's a little sleight of hand involved here and looking like it's the ark, but it's really the table. But it's on a linen cloth, and it's beautifully wrapped also in linen. That just as we have opened ourselves to Torah, so we learn that God opens God's self to us. And it is a time that's very poignant and very precious to offer up prayers for healing. And so we have the healing prayer, the prayer that Moses gave. Ana elna refanala, please God, heal her. Speaking of Miriam, but also, as you know, the soul is feminine. Speaking of the soul, who is inextricably connected to the body. Heal our loved ones, all who are ill in spirit, ill in body. May they return to us in fullness of health and well-being. Page 244. the blessing for healing.
From deep within the home of my soul, now let the healing begin. From deep within the home of my soul, now let the healing begin. Heal our bodies, open our hearts, awaken our minds, help. Heal our bodies, open our hearts, awaken our minds, Shekhinah. From deep within the home of my soul, now let the healing begin.
We now turn to our Haftarah, the continuation of this topic of love and of loss and of change. I'd like to invite Janice to bless and to read for us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. The Haftarah reading is taken from page 250 of the Mishkan HaNefesh and is entitled Through the Eternal My Heart Knows Joy, taken from 1 Samuel. And there was a man from Ramat Yaim Tzofim, from the hills of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, God creates, son of Yeroham, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Tzuf, an Ephraimite. And he had 2 wives, one named Hannah, Grace, and the other named Peninnah, Pearl. Peninnah had children, and Hannah had no children. And this man would go up from his town every year to worship at Shiloh and make offerings to the Eternal of Heaven's host. And there, Eli's 2 sons, Hophni and Pinchas, were priests of the Eternal. And on the day when Elkanah would make offerings, he would give portions to his wife Peninnah and to each of her sons and daughters. And to Hannah, he would give a special portion, because he loved Hannah, and the Eternal had closed her womb. And her rival wife would taunt her cruelly to make her tremble with grief, for the Eternal had closed her womb. And so it was year after year, when she would go up to the house of the Eternal. She taunted her, and she would cry and not eat. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you cry, and why do you not eat, and why are you disheartened? Am I not worth more to you than 10 sons? And Hannah arose after the eating and drinking at Shiloh, while Eli the priest sat upon the throne, near the doorpost of the temple of the Eternal. And she, bitter to the core, prayed to the Eternal, weeping and crying. And she vowed and said, Eternal of heaven's host, if you will truly see your servant's affliction, and remember me, and not forget your servant, and give your servant a son, I will give him to the Eternal all the days of his life, and no razor shall be lifted to his head. And as her praying before the Eternal intensified, Eli watched her mouth. And Hannah, she was speaking only in her heart. Though her lips were moving, her voice could not be heard. So Eli thought she was drunk, and Eli said to her, How long will you persist in drunkenness? Put away your wine, get rid of it. And Hannah answered and said, No, my Lord, a woman of sorrow am I. I drank neither wine nor spirits, but poured out my soul before the Eternal. Do not take your servant for a worthless woman. All this time I have spoken from the depth of my anger, from the greatness of my grief. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and may the Lord, the God of Israel, grant the request that you have made. And she said, May your servant find grace in your sight. And the woman went on her way, and she ate, and her face was no longer as it had been. And they awoke early in the morning and worshipped before the Eternal, and they went home, returning to Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Eternal remembered her. And so it was that at the turn of the year Hannah conceived, and then gave birth to a son. And she called him Samuel, because I requested him from the Eternal. And the man Elkanah and his whole household went up to make the annual offerings to the Eternal and to fulfill his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, Until the boy is weaned, then I will bring him. Once he appears before the Eternal, he will stay there forever. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Do what you think is best. Wait until you have weaned him. Surely the Eternal will fulfill what your mouth has uttered. So the woman stayed and nursed her son until she weaned him. When she had weaned him, she took him up with her, with a 3-year-old bull and 1 ephah of flour and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Eternal, to Shiloh. And the boy was young. They slaughtered the bull and brought the boy to Eli, and he said, Please, my Lord, as you love my Lord, I am the woman who stood here with you, praying to the Eternal. It was for this boy that I prayed, and the Eternal granted my request. I, in turn, grant what the Eternal asks of him. As long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Eternal. And there they worshipped the Eternal. And Hannah prayed, saying, Through the Eternal my heart knows joy. Through the Eternal my horn is raised. My mouth opens wide against my foes, for I exult in your deliverance. There is nothing holy like the Eternal, for there is nothing beside you. There is no rock like our God. Speak no more in lofty tones. Let arrogance leave your mouths. All-knowing is the eternal God, whose deed cannot be measured. The bows of the mighty are broken, while those who falter find strength. Those who are full sell themselves for bread, and the hungry hunger no more. The one who was barren bears 7, and the mother of many is bereaved. The Eternal is the maker of death and life, takes down to Sheol and brings back up. The Eternal makes poverty and wealth, casts low and raises aloft, lifts the poor from the dust, causes the needy to rise from the dung heaps and dwell among princes, then places them on thrones of honor. For the pillars of the earth belong to the Eternal, who founded the world upon them, who watches over the steps of the faithful, while turning evildoers silent in the darkness. For not by power shall a human being prevail. The Eternal shatters foes, thunders against them in the heavens. The Eternal judges the earth from end to end. So may God give strength to the sovereign and raise high the horn of God's anointed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzaddik b'chol ha'adorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer v'oseh, ha'medaber u'mekayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah v'al hanvi'im, v'al yom hazikaron hazeh, shenatatan lanu Adonai Eloheinu, לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל ויום הזיכרון.
Thank you so much, Janice, for sharing your beautiful readings with us. A blessing also for you for opening up the Haftarah. Tomorrow, we will be talking a little bit more in our deep Torah about what it means to lose a child. So we've just heard 2 of those stories, and tomorrow is the biggie. If you would like to join me in the afternoon at 4 o'clock tomorrow for Deep Torah Part 2, please come and join me. There's a Zoom link somewhere on the website, in the icon, probably in the chat shortly. And we will be doing, actually, I had thought we were going to be doing the darkness, the garden, and the snake at 4 o'clock today. But in fact, we are only doing the darkness and the snake. And if we're lucky, we'll get to the snake because I found too much about the darkness. Come and have fun learning Torah also this afternoon. That will be after Tashlich, which starts at 3. Sorry for the advertisements. We come now to the ending of our service, and I would like to invite Gail to lead us in the community prayer before we return the scrolls to the Ark.
May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, bless all those who have come today with reverence for God and respect for the Torah and the festival. May the Holy One bless them and all the members of this congregation, and may they find favor in the Eternal's eyes. God of all ages, we ask your blessing on the places that we live. Bless our beautiful country and give wisdom to the government and leaders of South Africa, so that they may promote justice, safety, and the well-being of every citizen. May we likewise do our duty by this land and strive to create understanding and respect between all peoples, for only then may we achieve the gift of divine peace. Our God, Rock of Israel and our Redeemer, bless the state of Israel, the first flowering of our redemption. Shelter Israel under the wings of your faithful love, and send your light to all its people. We pray that the peoples of Israel and Palestine may more closely understand each other. Help them to overcome prejudice, anger, hatred, and fear, so that they may learn to live side by side in harmony and peace. Lift up the spirits of your people, so that your promise may be fulfilled. The Torah shall come out of Zion, and the word of God from Jerusalem. Amen. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, Yesher Koach. Thank you so much. We return now our Torah scrolls to the Ark. My Ark is in the other room. So it is going to be beautifully covered here, and I will put it back in the Aron Kodesh later, and the ones behind me are already in place. But nonetheless, this is a moment, right, where we've had the sweetness of the honey of the Torah on our tongues. And it's impossible, after having delved into that potential for holiness, not to wish to praise. So we say on page 276, Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizgav shemo levado.
Odo eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehila lechol chasidav, lifnei Yisrael.
Ki lekach natati lahem Torati atazovu.
Etz chayim lamachazikim lav, v'tocheha me'ushav, teracheha darchei noam, v'chol netivoteha shalom, shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh yameinu kekedem. Etz chayim hi lamachazikim lav, v'chol netivoteha shalom, shalom, shalom.
So this is this precious teaching that we have been given. We just said, we want to hold fast to this Torah, to this teaching. And one of the complicated things about always doing that is the fact that it can also require us to change. And change is hard, and change is fun, and change is terrifying, and change is essential. And we learn this in the very first story of people. Here we were living in the garden, the fruit was falling off the trees into our mouths, we had not a care in the world, and we had no life. That's not true. We did have a life, but it wasn't a life that had meaning. It wasn't a life where we could transform things and see the works of our hands and see what might happen if. It was a life without a lot of curiosity. And it is in eating of the fruit of the tree, whichever tree it might have been, and some say it's the fig, some say it's the apple, we don't know. We were given the opportunity to partake in acts of creation and to become agents for change. So we can become agents for change by doing so with joy and openness, and we can become agents for change by digging in and kicking and screaming. And, you know, it's easy to feel like we're not made to do something when we start to do it. You know, that panic shock, that feeling of what on earth am I doing here? Why did I decide that I was going to learn Afrikaans? Why could I possibly have imagined that I would be any good at life drawing? Or, oh dear, I really thought my Hebrew was stronger and I would be able to read Torah without any difficulty, but it's not so easy and maybe I'll just quit. I want to invite us to remember this year, even though we're pretty good at Zoom, there are still new things to learn about how the technology interfaces with the virus and what that means for our world. There's so much Torah to be learned. There are tremendous things to learn about our loved ones. The opportunity to watch our children grow, to watch our parents age, to see the change and to make the change. And so I'm going to invite you to allow yourself to have the experience when change is happening and it feels uncomfortable, to say to yourself, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. This is weird and I don't like it. But it's not important. The important thing is not the change itself. The important thing is how we respond to that change. And if we can respond from the place of holiness, recognizing that imagining the first 6 days, creation changed so much, and yet so much beauty became as a consequence. That when we rail against change and struggle and push it away from ourselves, we are not allowing ourselves to get at the ikar, the stuff, the dirt of what it means to be alive. This is why when you're feeling a little stressed about something, my doctor, probably your doctor, would say, breathe. We allow the divine to enter us, to reanimate us, and then we breathe out. And in doing so, we also activate the body and help to calm it as it goes into that tight fight or flight. I can't deal with this. It's too new. It's too strange experience. And that locking up is actually a response of the intellect, not understanding something. But the only way to understand something is to mess with it. And so by taking that breath, by allowing the divine to revive you, you can return to your 4-year-old self with the mud bath in front of you that's going to distress your mother, but where you will discover that if you add more water, you get more fluid. And if you lift it up and squeeze it, it forms a ball. Having reverence for the materials that surround us, that are the causes of change, that we can modify and make into changed things, excuse me, is one of the first parts of fully enjoying the change. When we have allowed the inspiration, I mean that literally, to calm us, we are able with our exhalation to play in the same way that God played with the universe. And we can become beginners. And I think this is what it means at the start of Genesis. It says, Bereshit, which we traditionally translate as in the beginning, but really it means in the act of beginning. That creation is constantly renewing itself. We know this. The trees are budding and are about to bloom. Soon there will be spring flowers and summer fruits on our tables. Renewal is always possible. Change is something to approach with reverence and with curiosity. And when we do that, we really make ourselves once again in the image of the divine, who must have wondered, what on earth have I done making this garden? Well, it was really fun, but now I have to deal with all of the pieces of it. And yet, even dealing with the pieces, the divine returns to us and asks us every year to come back, to come into that garden, to celebrate the beauty, and to create and recreate. And so I invite you this year, when something is changing, and that could be your family, that could be our holy community, Beit David, as we look towards the future, that could be your work, that could, God willing, be our society, where maybe this is the year and truly we will find more employment for people and more safety. Whatever change comes our way, I invite you to emulate the divine, to be inspired, to take in the holy breath, to transform it into something nourishing, and to release it back into the world so that the world may grow around you and you can act as a nexus and a point of hope in the midst of the shifting sands of uncertainty that are also built into this glorious world. So I wish I was in the room with you all, and I would take the hands of the person next to me and give them a blessing for change, that they should be able to weather it with reverence and curiosity. And then I would ask them to turn to somebody else and bless that person, and I would bless somebody. And so 5 minutes in, we would all be blessing each other with strength to manage change and to understand that this is our holy work as human beings. Since I'm not there, I reach out my hands to you here, and I invite you to place your hands metaphorically upon mine, and I will feel your presence. And I give you my blessing, and I ask for your blessing, because it is hard to shift as it is good. And so together, holding hands, we may change this world. With our new sheets of literature ready to go, I invite you to join me in this great and unending task. Shana Tova. We continue with the Aleinu, which is exactly the prayer that says it's our job to take the divine and make it manifest and will manifest in the world. Once again, I invite our beautiful choir to lead us on page 286.
Aleinu leshabeach l'Adon hakol latet gedula leotzer bereshit shelo asanu כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה. שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם.
We are taught that the angels are largely praising God, but that at moments like this, angels come and they bring light and remind each other of all of the souls that they have seen, that they have watched do beautiful work upon the world. They remind each other of the glories of humanity, and they keep the memories shining brightly, as do we. People we loved, we polish their memories, though their time with us is done. Just like the stars that light up the night and guide us on our way, so are our ancestors and our friends and our loved ones, whom death has taken from us, guideposts for us. And we open our hearts in particular at this season to them and to the great loss within our community and throughout the world in these past 18 months. Zichronam livracha. May the memories of all be a blessing in this new year and always. We remember in particular, and I apologize if my list is not completely inclusive, so please at home say names of those who we also should be referring to at this moment. The blessings of the lives of Zena Strauss, grandmother of Catherine and Robert Wolk, Mark Bernstein, father of Val Sinclair, Len Miller, husband of Tina Miller, and from Beit David in Durban, Avis Rebeck, the mother of Barry Rebeck, Rhoda Abrahams, the mother of Stephen Abrahams. And we remember especially also the recent passing of Angie Kuttner, cousin of Angela Franco, and Rabbi Richard Hirsch, who was the leader of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. And he is gone. It is a very holy time, by the way, to die, to leave this world just as your page is completing, considered one of the holiest possible moments. And so they are joining all of the other souls in watching this first Rosh Hashanah for them from the other side, which we can only get a tiny glimpse of. So I invite you to rise as is your custom, whether that is in place or physically, and join me in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, which is found on page 292. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirteh, be'amlich malchuteh, b'chayichon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'izman kariv, ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mavrach, le'olam u'le'almei almai. Yitparach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'al v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh, v'yitalal, shmed kudsha brechu, le'ela u'le'ela, mikol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, ve'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. V'aseh shalom b'mromav, v'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. We have a few announcements.
Thank you to Doron Kanar for so ably facilitating the streaming of our services and putting together all the videos that have made this service so special. Thanks also to congregants who have contributed videos. Thank you to Rabbi Elisheva
for leading the service, especially given the challenges with the time differences. Special thanks to our choir, whose singing has enriched the service. Ashley and I have been members of Bet David for over 30 years, and I've been involved in management of this congregation for more than half that time. At no time that I can remember have donations to Bet David been so needed than they are right now. At this special time in our calendar, I urgently urge every member to make a donation to sustain our synagogue, its community, and the work that it does. Shana Tova Umetuka to everyone.
Hayom, 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 hayom.
Hayom Teyamseinu, Amen.
Hayom, 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 hayom.
Hayom Tefachenu, Amen.
Hayom, 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 hayom.
Hayom Tegaleinu, Amen.
Hayom, hayom,
Hayom Tidrashenu Letova, Amen.
hayom, hayom,
Hayom Titchaveinu Lechaim Tovim, Amen.
Hayom, 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 hayom.
Tishma Shabbatenu, Amen.
Hayom, 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 hayom.
Titmechenu bemin tzidkecha, Amen.
On this day, the world came to a close. On this day, the world began. On this day, our past shone for the first time, a tiny light of humanity amidst the green. On this day, the world that was created to be our home was finished, and we were placed in it and given the call to tend and to keep it. On this day, we once again place ourselves in the hands of the divine, and we offer up our hearts as pledge that there will be a new day, a new world, that this day is only the beginning of a time when there is peace, and the peace comes from us and through us and with us. And so on this day, we once again dedicate ourselves. We say, please, O Divine One, look upon us, guard us and keep us as we were to guard and keep your garden. Look upon us with favor as we wandered about and saw all the beautiful plantings. Grant us the great blessing of peace as we continue to plant and to tend and to build. Shana Tova to you all. We end, unfortunately, not outside with honey cake, although I want you to imagine that there's honey cake for all of us. But in our own homes, perhaps in a slightly more comfortable pair of shoes, or no shoes, even better, and the opportunity to conclude by hearing our beautiful choir sing Yigdal, this great praise of the divine who has brought us the honey cake via the loving hands of those who bake it for us. May you enjoy the sweetness. May you enjoy the loving hands. May you share and grow and be blessed in all you do. Shana Tova.
Yigdal Elohim chai v'yishtai tagov eno guf lo na'aroch elav kedushato kadmon lechol davar asher nivra rishon ben reshit lereshito
Ino Adon Olam lechol notzar Yoreh gedulato amalchuto
Shefa nevuato netano el anshe segulato vetifarto
Lo kam Yisrael kemoshe od Navi umabit et emunato
Torah temet natan le'amoel Aryan nevio neman beito
Lo yachalifa el velo yamidato leolamim lesulato
Sofer ve'yodea setarenu mabit lesof davar bekadmato Gomel leish chesed kemifalo noten lerashara kerishato Yishlach leketz yamin pedut olam kol chai leish yakir Yeshuato
Haye olam natam betocheinu Baruch Adei Hashem Tehilato